Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Thinking Forward. We're so happy to have you joining us here today. Um, I don't know if Rielle is going to join on a screen in a minute, but there she is.
Hello.
Felt all solo up here. But yes, I'm Ria, one of our hosts, and we have the lovely Rielle.
Hello, I am Riel. Welcome. I'm not sure how much Ria has already said, but I'll continue on as usual. Hello and welcome. As I said, my name is Riel. I am currently in my apartment in Montreal, Tiohtià:ke. It's historically known as the first meeting place for many First Nations people and cared for by the Kanien'kehá:ka people. Neptune Theater, however, and where I assume most people are streaming in from today, and most people on our panel are from today, is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. And we acknowledge them as the past, present, and future caretakers of this land. Where I recognize we are on the digital platform. People are watching from all over Turtle Island. They might be. So I just give you this time to reflect on the land that you're on. Maybe if you don't know which land you're on, do some research into that. Feel free to type that newfound knowledge into the comments, say where you are. Ria, do you want to share where you are right now?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
currently in
in.
Toronto, also known as Toronto, and that falls under the Treaty 13 territory. And this is the land of the Anishinaabe, Mrs. Credits of the First Nation, Haudenosaunee, and Huron-Wendat. And yeah, we love it when people let us know where they are. And if you don't know what land you're on, learn a little bit. And if you're new joining this week, welcome to Thinking Forward. This is a panel discussion with youth and artists about theater run by youth and artists. And just concepts and ideas as we move forward in the future of the Canadian theatre landscape. You can find us here on the Neptune Theatre School Facebook or YouTube. And this week's topic is sustainability and action in theatre. And so we're discussing a few things on just the intersections of inclusivity, care, climate in the arts, and how that all links to a sustainable future. And we have quite a few guests that I'm so excited to bring on. I think, are we good to bring them on now?
Well, let's bring them in.
Come on in, everyone.
Welcome, guests.
Hi,
Hello.
everyone.
Yes. Hello. We almost have everyone. Awesome. Hello. Oh. Hello, everyone. I think we're going to start with some introductions. Let's start with Todd. We hear you have many backgrounds of both like education and arts. We'd love to hear some of that. Please introduce.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so happy and honored to be here amongst this fantastic panel group and the audience. And I do have to say that even though I saw on the banner it said youth, I was like, oh my gosh, so by default, I'm considered youth. So, so I'm actually located here in Halifax. And I'm originally, well, I am American, but I've kind of transplanted myself to Canada. I was living in Montreal, which I simply adored. And I just moved here to Halifax last year with my partner. My history, interestingly enough, well, I hope it's interesting, is that I started out in New York as a performing artist. So I've done several different Broadway shows. Then I moved to LA, did several different soap operas, and decided I wanted to make a change. And I went back to school. I then went and obtained my first master's in urban sustainability. And then after that, and I'll discuss a little bit more of that as we go on. But then after that, then I moved. I knew I wanted to do something else. And then I went to Concordia University and decided to do another master's program in drama therapy. Now, the reason why I did those two is that both of them actually marry each other and pair with each other rather well, all within the social justice stream. And we'll talk a little bit more about what social justice is, definitions, and the roles that theater can kind of play into that. So thank you so much for that, and look forward to speaking more.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. And Alexandra, we know you are also doing a form of therapy. You're trained to be a speech therapist, yeah? And we're really interested in your take on sustainable performance and just a little bit of background.
Yeah, definitely. So I am a speech language pathology student at Dalhousie University. I'm actually in my final 2 days of my final placement before I graduate with my master's. I'm doing my placement in voice rehabilitation. So I also hold a Bachelor of Music in Vocal Performance from the University of Prince Edward Island. And I have worked as a singing teacher as well. So I'm really interested, obviously, in vocal health and performance, and how we can help voices be sustainable, not only for just the run of a performance, but run of a show and the run of a career. So there are lots of different aspects that go into sustainability and the voice and performance. So looking forward to talking more about that.
Yes, absolutely.
So excited. Enya, you grew up in BC around the nature and all that beautiful stuff, and I know you love, just sustainability and stuff. Do you want to speak to that and give us a background on who you are?
Sure. Hello, my name is Enya. I'm from northern BC, Smithers, Wet'suwet'en Territory, and I'm also in Chicago. I'm in Montreal with Riel. I'm in Riel's class at NTS. And so I did, like Riel said, I grew up around the nature. And I don't know, I've just always felt very connected to the land and to nature and our forests and everything. I was a tree planter for a little bit. I worked in politics briefly. Me and some people I know have done a lot of, support for the Wet'suwet'en and trying to stop the pipelines coming through the north of BC and all that good stuff. So that's who I am. Now I'm doing theater and trying to merge all that,
Thank you. That's awesome. Leanna, as well, also a student at National Theatre School with both Enya and I. You are the sustainability manager on the student council at our school. Would you like to speak to that a little bit, and also who you are?
Yeah, hi. I'm so happy to be here. Like Riel said, I'm attending the National Theatre School. I'm in my second year of the acting program, and I was so excited to take up the helm of sustainability manager. I've always been really, really interested in the environment, interested in how our artistic processes overlap with our social justice and our sustainability practices. And for half of the year, I've concentrated on the mental health of the student population and ideas of burnout and the like. And then this second semester, I've turned my focus towards the sustainability of the institution itself. So it's all a work in progress.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful. And Vera, we know that you are going to be in Little Women coming up, and you're also an aspiring filmmaker. Can you fill us in about a bit of that?
Yep, I wrote my first film in late September, and I'm hopefully going to film it at the end of June, early July. And the film's about 12-year-old girl trying to go through all of these new emotions she just gathered, and now she's sharing them with the world. So, yeah.
That's so awesome. I can't wait to hear more about all of these wonderful people. We have so many. I'm so excited to chat today.
We really have such a broad spectrum of sustainability and so many interesting things. I am very, very excited.
Yes.
Who wants to ask the first question? I'm looking at Riel. Do you want to ask the first one? Should I ask the first one? I'm just really excited.
Yeah, I'll ask a first question. This will just be a general one, I guess. We talked a bit about merging social justice in theater and sustainability in theater. I guess just like an initial, where does sustainability meet theater for you? And how does that overlap? Does anyone want to speak to that?
Sure, I'll jump at that if everybody's okay with that, if that feels good. So there's a couple of things that we have to look at, right? So social justice and sustainability have three basic pillars to it, right? And so you have environmental, you have economic, and you have equity. You really want to kind of incorporate all three of those simultaneously to create just systems. So where arts can come in for that is there's a wonderful man named Augusto Boal, and he did the Theater of the Press. And what he did was really, what's the word I'm looking for, kind of stimulate critical discussion and kind of observation of society in order to get them engaged in how to address injustices. So sustainability really is kind of anchored in those three pillars, and you can use the arts to elevate those three pillars and bring it out to the public so that way they can actually participate in problem solving and actually solution finding. Does that help a little bit with that question?
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to speak to that? Yeah, Deanna.
Yeah, I know a lot of people feel the crushing like scariness of where the climate crisis is headed, and that can lead to inaction because fear paralyzes you. And I know for me, my artistic practice is a form of active participation and active pursuit of finding sustainable ways of living. And I think it's integral to my career moving forward, is how can I incorporate and like braid the two together so that they're almost inseparable.
I'm curious. I have a more specific question, unless anyone else wants to speak generally to that. But yeah, Alexandra, how does that link into being sustainable in terms of body and voice for you?
Yeah, definitely. So when I think about sustainability and performance, my first thought goes to voice and sustainability, of course, because of my background. And so we like to think about how we can keep the voice as efficient as possible, and reducing or eliminating things like tensions, and maintaining effective placement of the voice, and promoting good vocal hygiene and all of that sort of thing. And when it comes to theater and performance, we know that there are so many factors that go into that, and keeping the voice healthy and sustainable is something that a lot of people can struggle with when it comes to things like medical conditions, just like a cold or a flu, and being able to say no, know when to say no and take a break, that sort of thing. And then thinking about how we can do that in terms of your career in general, and finding other ways to bring other aspects of theater, not just performance, but maybe you also enjoy writing, you enjoy more dance, you enjoy directing and that sort of thing, and being able to step back from performing if you're feeling that you need to take a break, and making yourself a more well-rounded theater performer in general. So yeah, just being able to know when to say no, and being able to be healthy with your voice.
on that, I feel like I've totally been in the situation regarding vocal, regarding environmental as well. Like when you're a new artist on the scene, and there's something that doesn't sit right with you, what maybe the demand for your voice is too much, or maybe it's like regarding the environment as well. I've definitely been in a situation where I'm like, is this the best way to be dealing with this? But you are one part of the big picture. How, with this team, if anyone wants to speak to it, how do you like, what would you suggest for an artist to begin those conversations, begin to find support, begin to advocate for yourself and what you believe in when still feeling like it's harder to take that space or harder to be in that place? Anyone wants to hop in?
Can you just clarify that question a little more for me, just so that
Yeah.
I understand? Because it sounds like if I can reflect it back, it
Yeah.
sounds like you're saying, how does one take care of themselves to sustain themselves in an environment of artistic expression or in a venue of artistic expression? Is that correct?
More like just so I know there's different we have some people sustainable environment and some people sustainable body and voice. So like if you have come across a moment when you need to advocate for yourself, but you were like an artist on the scene, like you're not the most senior position, you're part of a whole team. For me, it's happened for my voice for sure, where I've been like, I need to advocate for myself and I'm not sure how to, because I'm such a smaller part of the big picture. And also for so many shows, I've had the thought in my head, like, oh, how can we do this in a new way? But that being said, you're part of just a whole team. So it can sometimes feel like a little intimidating for a younger artist to bring those concerns forward because you're not at the management team, you're not at the creative team, but you are a part of it. And so does that clarify it a bit? Just like that kind of way in?
Yeah, sure. So if I may, is it
Yeah.
okay if I speak to that? Good.
Yeah, I
So
know I'm talking a lot.
no, it's really beautiful. It's great. And I so am in complete admiration of everybody on here asking these kind of questions and really digging in, because there is such vulnerability that we enter into the room and into the space as artists, right? And because all of this, dancing, singing, and acting, is a muscle, right? And muscles can sometimes get strained. They're sometimes dependable, and most a lot. A cold could happen, just as Alexander said, the vocal cords, the voice, it's a fragile instrument. We have to take care of it. We have to take it healthy, but sometimes stuff happens. And when you're entering a room, you're a young artist and something goes wrong and you're like, oh my God, you feel all that pressure on you. I think for the most part, everyone is feeling that too. And everyone is aware of the fragility of our humanness, of our human muscles as dancers, as singers, as actors, right? We are the only profession that is asked to perform superhuman feats, and that can be vocally, that could be dance-wise, and that can be acting, right? So it's okay if you have this little nervous thing going, oh my God, I'm not vocally. People do take breaks. People do say, I'm going to not really sing full out today. I am going to just mark it so that way I can stay healthy. If the show is respectful of the artist and the people in control are respectful of the artist, they understand that and they will allow the artist to do that in order for the project to continue on in the most productive, fruitful way. Right. And then it's up to the artist's responsibility to say, okay, after the show, straight home, soup, or nothing and just resting vocal cords. However, that does not negate, and I totally hear you what you say, but as a young artist, you'll be feeling that feeling, oh, did I let the team down? Remember, the team is a team. It's a machine that you all work together and that everybody wants to be supportive of each other to make sure that the product is the best it could be or it can be. Is that comforting? How does that feel to you when you hear those words?
Definitely. Yeah, very comforting. It's just addressing that fear. I feel like a lot of young artists take on that I'm letting everyone down and that kind of things, and very, very comforting to hear.
Yeah, everyone will feel that. And no matter adult, from young kids all the way from all the shows that I've done, there's always that. And there's always a time that you're going to have to call out. No one is superhuman. Very few make it through a whole run without calling out once. Very few. So you're not alone, is what I'm saying. We are all with you. All artists are holding each other.
Appreciate that. Enya, I saw you had a hand.
Yes, I did. Just to add to that, is that like in the vein that everyone has that completely going on, is like, even for me, like I had a knee injury for a while, and by far the worst part of my knee injury I remember was thinking that people were gonna think I was faking it. And I was so worried about that. So I would like push myself or whatever, because I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna be the, like, I don't want to be the person that's not participating or whatever. And as I grew up, I realized how, ridiculous that is. Everyone's just there to support you and what you're doing. And nobody's going to think that you're not trying or not doing your best to be a part of like the group. That's crazy. And so like, I feel like to a certain extent too, like it doesn't help necessarily with that fear at first, but you can trust that almost everyone there is going to be on your side and understanding. And if they aren't, then that's more of a them problem than a you problem, I think.
Ooh, say it louder.
Speaking of that, like, Leanna, your work you do is specifically with young artists, young students, and you are a young artist yourself. Yeah, I guess, yeah, do you want to speak more to that in relation to, yeah, what what we've been talking about?
Yeah. Just the thought that came to mind listening to Enya and to Todd. I'm a type 1 diabetic, and that's a chronic illness, and it's something that will be with me through my whole life. And when people come forward and say, oh, I need to take a break, oh, this is necessary for me, then it allows someone like me who has to carry this throughout my whole life. It brings me peace and comfort, because the bar isn't to be a superhuman. Like there isn't like an optimal body to have, or like an optimal voice or optimal breath, because every person has a different form and like different areas that they need to navigate. And I know moving through an institution with a chronic illness, it's taught me that, or sometimes it's made me feel as though I need to change to fit the institution that I'm in. But that's not sustainable for me. I can't change this part of myself. And so I'd love to be a part of more spaces that are more accessible and inviting to people that have different bodies and different needs.
Thank you for sharing that. It's so true. Even on the vastest levels and the smallest levels, we're all very individual, very similar, but very, very individual. And sometimes I feel like we are restrained to fitting one mold, and it's not sustainable at all. Well said. I'm really interested in too, navigating this pandemic. In all these spaces, what have you all noticed? Has that made it easier to have a sustainable practice, or has it been harder? How has that brought up just difficulties or benefits throughout these 2 years of virtual, online, everything like that?
Yeah, and yeah, Vera, let's hear from you.
Vera, go ahead.
If I could comment, as a young person that had to grow up through this, it was quite difficult to hop on through like online school, not knowing what was happening. I was only in grade 6, so it was quite difficult to kind of hop on. But now that I picture it, it would have been so much easier if I just had the tools before. If I could comment on that much, because sustainably, it worked really well, and it did what it needed to do to protect us, but we weren't ready. And I think it could have been a lot more helpful if we could have had a little bit more schooling and things like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. And yeah, you mentioned having the tools. Do you feel like you now have some tools that have developed over these past 2 years that have helped you with the sustainability, or?
For sure. It was really helpful, like now I have the online tools that'll help me learn how to film my everything. It was really helpful to learn the technical side of everything, because I wouldn't have made myself this far in what I did 2 years ago. So yeah, in some ways it was beneficial, in others it was difficult, but both cross each other out. So
for sure, thank you. Enya, you had a hand earlier. Is the thought still?
Yeah, sure. I was just thinking in terms of I feel like with environmental sustainability or even other sustainability, people always think they're no, but this is the status quo. We can't change it. That'll be too disruptive. And then if you look at the pandemic, that was the most disruptive thing that could have happened. And we're here 2 years later and we're still doing it. And so I think there's a part of this too, that it's we're stronger than we think and we can deal with more than what we think. And so at one point, we just have to implement the extreme changes in our industry and in the world that we will adapt to and we will be able to withstand, because we've learned in the last 2 years as a human species that we're capable of adapting, and it kind of sucks, but also it's possible, And so I feel like that's something I've learned throughout the pandemic in terms of what sustainability means. And, I said it before, but we can do more than we think, and we're stronger than we think too.
Yeah, Alexandra.
I think something that was interesting that came out of the pandemic for me, as a healthcare, working to be a healthcare professional, is the ability to access other people from afar. So, if the people have the resources from afar to access something like Zoom, being able to reach more people quicker was something that I found was really helpful. And I'm sure it's a similar trend in performance too, being able to, put on live shows on the internet, being able to reach a wider audience online. So I think that's something that that is really helpful. And I know in the healthcare world, that's not going away anytime soon. And I'm sure it'll continue in theater and performance as well.
Yes. Yeah, going off of that, I have a question for Alexandra and Todd in terms of therapy in the arts. Yeah, I guess I'm just curious how do you navigate? I don't know where this question is going, but I guess I'm curious. I guess I'm curious about your work with therapy in the arts in relation to sustainability, in relation to social justice, and the pandemic too, if you feel it.
I know for me, through my latest practicum experience, I've worked a lot with different individuals in performing arts. I've worked with actors, and I've worked with singers, and it's really interesting to be able to access that world. And I have a background in vocal performance as well. I did opera, and actually coming from a vocal injury myself, and being able to understand that world of devastation that comes from having an injury that affects your livelihood is hard. And being able to help and give people the tools that they need to be able to continue their practice has been really great. And I'm glad that I was able to do that and reach more people online actually than I probably would have otherwise. So yeah, there's some great things that have come out of this for sure.
Yeah, that's really beautiful, and I love that you even expressed having personalized your own vocal injury and knowing the weight of what that feels like, which is again just an affirmation of human being, things happen, muscles strain, all of that, right? And we rise above. We may fall down, but we get up. In my practice, so I have a couple of different pieces moving. So I have my own private practice, and then I do a lot of workshops for different organizations. Like I spoke at the COP26 climate conference, and then I also try to do a lot of social justice work, incorporating the drama therapy techniques, right, which are just about embodying whatever issue comes up so that people can really feel it in their body, right? Because information lives in your body. If you're like this, the information you're receiving is like somebody's holding something in. So drama therapy allows people to just kind of act out and release stuff in their body. I also want to just say something. I think Alexandra said, which was wonderful, is that the thing that the pandemic did, if we kind of configure the perspective of it, is saying, as hard as it was, what did it do good, right? And it did give us the ability to reach farther and further to communities and people who would normally not be able to access the support systems that they were able to access, right? So for me, I work a lot with LGBTQ, Afro and Indigenous populations, and I try to really put myself out there. So the pandemic, while it did affect us and we all had to deal with it, it did give us some accessibility, and it actually let people in, brought people in. I hope I'm still on track for answering your question. The art is so important because it's expressive, right? And that in itself is therapeutic to people. And that in itself translates, it really is so flexible to go into so many different places. And when you have somebody who is a professional art therapist, it gets into the soul of the person to actually let them express in a way that they can be more free about expressing, right? We don't have to necessarily just sit and do talk therapy and you hear the clock ticking and you sit in these uncomfortable silences, which is good too, right? Information comes from silence. But you're able sometimes with art therapy, speech therapy, vocal, drama therapy, to find new avenues for expression. And we use that for sustainability, not only for our own personal lives, but how we affect change in our life that'll affect change outside of our lives, right? And that can be moved into any places of climate justice, into social justice, into the change of anything. You can do performance art around, if you want to be an animal rescuer, right? You could create a piece, you could write something in dog form, and say, this is what the message is. If you want to say something, you can sing it, write the lyrics down, say your truth, your words, figure out what that's going to be. Now, the part of sustaining yourself or sustainability, usually with words like this, I like to ask everybody what those words mean to them, because my definition may not mean what your definition is. And that's always a key point to remember when we start talking about things. That's what I do in my workshops, is say, okay, so what is sustainability to you? And then we work from there, and see what that is, right? And I love that when Leanna says, like, yeah, when somebody falls back or says, I'm not feeling well, it gives space for you to say, yay, somebody else is human with me in the room. Finally, well done. So that for me is a part of sustainability, is the looking out for each other and letting say and acknowledging that we are all fallible, beautifully fallible, though, not fallible negatively, beautifully fallible. And that's what makes us human. So I hope that didn't stray too far from your original question. If it did, feel free to correct or ask any more. So
yes, Leanna.
Just in regards to what you were saying about how art is expressive and how that can be an avenue to action. I know that when I first started my position, I felt really constrained, because I thought, what do we need to limit and take away and restrict and sacrifice to be sustainable? And as artists and creators, all we want to do is put out ourselves and our ideas, and we want to produce and share and share and share. And those two ideas were conflicting in my head when I first started. And so it was important for me to reframe sustainability, not just in what we need to reduce and sacrifice, but also how we can grow and create, because our creativity is infinite. And that means there are infinite solutions. And that's what helped me take the steps forward and say, we don't just have to take things away. Like, what can we give? Like, we can give awareness, we can give education. Like you said, we can create projects exploring these topics. And in doing so, it allows artists to feel like they're contributing in a way that's true to themselves and their art, and also beneficial to furthering the conversation around climate change.
Absolutely. It's so true, that mindset that we love to create and put out. I want to ask, like, jumping off of that, like, what are some things that artists themselves can take on individually to help create a more sustainable theater environment, be that in their health or be that in the climate or environment? Like, what are some things that you would pass on to artists who want to make a more sustainable change in their life?
That's a really good question. And that's something that I'm still developing myself.
Give me the answer, yeah.
But honestly, I think it starts with putting it in your brain, putting it in the back of your mind, creating reminders every day to say, like, we're not going to treat something urgently unless we tell ourselves it's urgent. And so, like, in regards to the work I'm doing at school, it seems small, but like creating a billboard to share information seems like it won't do much, but people walk past that billboard every day. Teachers, students, people who are graduating, guest artists, they walk past that. And whether it's through stopping and looking or subliminal messaging, it becomes a part of someone's daily life. And once it becomes a part of your daily life, it'll become a part of your practice.
That's so true. Oh my gosh. Just that little, like, ripple effect, it could be huge. Yeah.
If I can talk to, like, the government kind of side, is that we could reach out to the government and ask for more theaters or more open spaces, because I truly believe that being outdoors is so much better for our mental health, like, not only for the performers, but for the directors, for the music directors, for the audience. Like, it's just so much better. We can also reach out for, like, support for scholarships for any further into education for theater. So yeah, I find it.
Absolutely. And the more people that reach out, the more results you'll get back too. Yeah.
Yeah, and in terms of that, like, not only reaching out to governments, but to other theaters, other theater practitioners. My words are so jumbled today. Like, there are so many other artists who are willing to help and pass on those messages too. So on top of the government, yeah, other artists and theaters are also great to reach out to too, for grants and bursaries and things like that.
Question for the room. What do we hope to see in the future, like the next few years to come, that is a sustainable change? What do we want to see more of? Like, what could be the new sustainable theater that we start to see? It's a big one.
Difficult question, but if I could say accessibility to anyone at any time. So if that means going online to show a performance just so if somebody's not able to make a performance, that they're still able to access it and see it. Because it's going to run into times, like, even a family member might not be able to make it, and I find it important that they're still able to see, like, if it's your mom, your dad, that their work is too busy, they still get to see you shine in their own little way. Because that'll mean the world not only to you, but to them. Because they've put in so much effort to put you where you are today. And that could be like any part of the LGBTQ plus community, like any females, it matters, and it means a lot to them when they get the opportunity. Not only audience, but in performers as well.
Absolutely.
Yes, that's so true. And I guess a question that I'm always asking is like, we're seeing growing numbers of more diverse bodies like within on stage and things like that. But how do we bring diverse audiences to the theaters as well? And yeah, how do we continue to do that work so that the communities who the work is for are seeing that and actually able to engage in that? Just a question. I'm wondering.
These are really thoughtful and beautiful questions. And Vera, I think that was so lovely, beautifully stated, that being able to still let an audience member be able to access a performance and how important that is really a lovely, wonderful, thoughtful component of sustainability, right? I so appreciate that. And I think there's so many different pieces to sustainability, right? I think the first thing is to, to ask yourself, what does sustainability mean to you? How do you enter the room wanting a sustainable experience, right? Again, everybody's going to have their own interpretation and definition or experience of what sustainability is. And I think we speak to finding the support and outreaching and bringing in and visually seeing people. A lot of it might have to do with cross-pollination, right? Of different, your school in Montreal, here's a school in Nova Scotia, and there's a school in somewhere in Alberta or something, something, because then we really get to see a reflection of what the society is, right? And that brings a sustainable, emotional, societal change, rather than, okay, this is a classical piece and it has to have this type and that, and everything's an effort, the casting's an effort, or it's a real blatant kind of like, oh, we want to do just, and really mix it up. But if we cross-pollinate, it might become less of an effort. We might actually wonderfully see the true reflection of what we are all made up of in this country, both all of North America, and I can only speak for that since that's my only lived experience. So, period, end quote, by the way. So.
No, I felt that with the cross-pollination and that turning it into so it's not so much of an effort, that I feel like is so at the heart of it, to get the audiences that need to connect. And yeah, and that emotional sustainability as well. That when you do the work and you see it reflected on like in the audience, you do something that is so personal to you, so specific to your lived experience. You get to share that with someone who doesn't get to. That is emotional sustainability for both of you in that exchange. Yeah, beautiful.
Can
Yeah.
I just add another little piece before, because I know we're running out of time. What you said, the thing I really want to impress upon everybody, is to make sure we always realize how beautifully individual we are, right? So when you enter into the space, when you're hired in any kind of way, shape, or form, you enter in professionally ready to go. But then you enter in knowing who you are, what your needs are, what may happen. That is the sustainability, to be honest with yourself and be able to communicate that with somebody. Does not excuse you from like, well, I'm not doing my homework because, I'm just not. It's knowing, doing your homework, showing up, but then also being honest, really asking yourself before you arrive in the room, what is going to be my definition of sustaining myself? How does this work for me? And then how am I communicating? How can I best show up and communicate that to those, right? That is self-responsibility. That is respect for the theater and for the process and your fellow comrade in the business who's working with you. But it's so self-loving of you, right, to do that. So, period, end quote.
I find that so nice to like, I guess I've never really thought of sustainability in that way of like, yeah, like what it takes to go into a room and not be your full self. And being your full self is an act of sustainability. And so I'm just loving hearing all these thoughts, because it's making me think about this topic in such a different way. And it's giving me like actual practical skills that I'm like, okay, I'm going to go into rehearsal tomorrow and use that. Yeah, thank you.
I think we're running out of time a bit, but if anyone has any other closing thoughts on sustainability or anything else they wanted to share before we wrap up in a little bit. Although I could talk with you guys all day because this is really, yeah.
Yeah.
To touch on things, to touch on what Todd said, self-care is really important, and I highly encourage it because in my personal experience, like even just changing your room to fit a little bit more of how you feel on the inside will legitimately change who you are and how you feel around other people about being yourself. So I do really highly encourage self-care.
Yeah.
Also following what Todd said and what Vera said as well, just in terms of that self-love and being honest with yourself from a healthcare perspective, being true to yourself and realizing when you might need help with something, right? Realizing I can seek out help for this issue that I'm having, and I'm going to connect with other people, and that's okay. And that's part of self-love as well, reaching out to others. So I encourage everyone to do that as well.
So true. Yeah.
My very last thought, which is maybe weirdly worded, but I was just thinking about, so this word sustainable, and Todd, what you were saying about what it means to us. And I was like, okay, so I guess part of what sustainability would mean too is that what it means to me yesterday isn't what it has to mean today. And so like the sustainability of who I am and like my values and, even the environment or my mental health or whatever also means allowing it to change day by day. And it doesn't have to be what it was yesterday or what it's going to be tomorrow in order for it to still be authentic, I guess. Yeah.
That's beautiful, Anya. I like that. And it's true. What I think you're saying is really just remember, as human spirits, we are allowed to contract and expand and continue to evolve every second of the day. It's almost like a feeling when somebody steps on your foot. That first feeling is ow. And then 2 minutes from then, you're like, you stepped on my foot. It's not hurting. And then a day after, you're like, oh, you stepped on my foot? So, and that truth, give yourself the allowance to know that today in this moment is one feeling, one idea of what you think sustainability is, but you have permission to change that as soon as we get off this call. You have permission to change that tomorrow morning. You have permission to change that every single day that you walk this earth. So thank you for that, Anya. Sorry, I say Anya. Anya. So.
These words are so beautiful and nice. I feel like I'm soaking up so much information. And I don't know, every week with these panels, it's a whole different vibe. And I'm just learning so much. Thank you everyone for your words.
Always such a surprise. It never goes in the direction I think. I always learn so much more. And I always ditch all my notes because we have so many new topics. I love it.
So unless anyone has any like last words that they really, really want to share, I'll give some space there if anyone has some. Awesome. Okay, with that then, I think this is the end of our sustainability panel today. Thank you so much for all of your wonderful insight. as I've been saying, I've just been here soaking it all up, and all of my words have been like this because there's so many thoughts. I've just been like, yeah, my mind is blown with all this information coming my way. Yeah, so thank you so much.
And thank you to everyone who joined us as well online. Just a wonderful, wonderful room to be in. I can't wait to chat again soon. New people next week, but maybe some of you all another time. So lovely, everyone. Thank you.
I think that's it, right? I think I just sign off.
I'm back. Sorry, guys, about the tech stuff on my end, but we're done.